Back for part two of our special show, What About Nutrition? On Westflex Radio, Steve Casper and Mr. Nutrition, David Gall. Go to www.ofallennutrition.com. These shows are archived. ofallennutrition.com, and our very special guest with Natural Calm and the company that makes that, and her name is Holly Johnson. We're turning now to David Gall, Mr. Nutrition. David?
Hey, thanks a lot, Steve. I really am having fun. You know, Holly, we've been having such a great discussion, and right before the break, you were getting into the fact that so many Americans consume, really high calcium foods, both foods that are naturally high in calcium, such as milk and yogurt, as well as some grains, but also foods that are fortified with calcium, calcium-fortified orange juice, calcium-fortified granola bars. And it seems like we almost have an obsession with calcium. And as we were talking about in the first segment, calcium and magnesium are actually in a balance with each other like sodium and potassium are. Yes. And so I'd like to let you kind of riff, so to speak, on this point for a moment about the idea that, Americans in particular tend to consume a lot of calcium-rich foods and not so many magnesium-rich foods. And perhaps you can also, while you do that, bring up some of the foods that are rich in magnesium.
Absolutely. You know what, and I think just over decades of training, our tongues are more predisposed to eating the things that are not very good for us. So we end up eating things that are either fast food, or they're very salty, they're very fatty, they're very sugary, and even kids, as I mentioned before, I was a teacher, I'd see the most amazing things come to school in the lunches for these kids, and some of them were really nutrient-less, and some of them were very nutritional. And looking at it, you look at their granola bars had calcium fortification, their orange juice had calcium fortification, their sandwiches, the bread was calcium fortified, the cheese naturally has calcium in it, and their yogurts had calcium. But there wasn't a whole lot of options if you wanted to have a kid come to school with magnesium-rich foods. You'd be hard-pressed to find a kid bringing an artichoke to school, or halibut, or bringing buckwheat or oat bran and drinking prune juice. It's just not, that is not foods that are predisposed for kids to just dive into and want to eat.
Sure.
And so really in our diet, a lot of these foods, whether they're out of the price range of people or they're out of the palatability range for people, they just don't tend to eat things that are magnesium rich. And I would just have to eat my socks if I walked down the grocery store aisle and started seeing, just a wide panoply of things that were magnesium enriched. You just wouldn't see it. I mean,
right.
There's benefits to, wanting to make sure that we're handling osteoporosis, and they're attacking it with gusto, saying calcium is the way to handle it. And unfortunately, I mentioned before, we are the highest consumers as a nation of calcium, and yet we're also the highest afflicted with osteoporosis. So that really can't be the equatable answer in there.
Sure,
of going,
of course.
yes, this is the only thing we need, but hey, we're getting that, and we still have the problem.
Exactly. No, I think that's such a good point. And, from what I understand, green vegetables in general are a major source of magnesium, and we're under-consuming them. Adults and kids.
And we have the dependency of trying to cook everything. We're predisposed to wanting to just boil everything to death or cook it to death. So even if you did like asparagus, you should eat it raw. If you do like spinach, obviously you should eat it raw.
That makes perfect sense. And, this leads me into, for a minute or two, I'll comment about what we see in our store. And what we see are folks coming in and they're complaining about muscle tightness. They're complaining about, twitchy muscles. They're complaining about constipation all the time. They're complaining about anxiety, headaches. They're having trouble relaxing. And sometimes I'll joke to folks that if you ever run a health food store, one of the first products you're going to want to have is magnesium, and of course I'd suggest a great one is Natural Calm, because you're going to run into all these folks that just exhibit signs of deficiency of magnesium. And, we can't cure their disease or prevent conditions, but we can support healthy cells. And so we suggest magnesium for supporting healthy cells, for supporting the 300 enzymatic reactions that it's involved with in the body, for supporting the ability of muscles to relax after calcium helps them contract. And, lo and behold, we sure see it do a lot of good. And I'm sure working over the years with Natural Vitality and Natural Calm, you've probably seen so many success stories, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, you know what's amazing is generally people, if they're really educated, they can spot what they're missing. But, the average person walking in saying, every once in a while I get heart palpitations, and at the same time I'm stressed, at the same time I'm fatigued, I can't sleep. I take some sort of medication to help me go to bed. I take a medication to help me get going in the morning. I take another one for headaches. I take something to thin my blood. I take something to help my mood. You start looking at this wide range, and you couldn't really believe that it could be just one thing missing, just one basic element missing in your body. And I try to liken it to drinking water. It's something very basic, something everybody does. But if you don't drink water, let's say you're stumbling around in the desert, it'll start with, feeling like a dry mouth, feeling a little fatigued, feeling dizzy maybe, and it escalates all the way to hallucinating, blacking out, and dying. So you look at water and go, wow,
yeah,
basic, and I need that or I would die. And you look at magnesium and you go, well, starting at a low level, yeah, you get muscle cramps, you get fatigue and low energy. It does, with serotonin levels being produced off of magnesium, you're going to need it for your mood and feeling irritable or anxious and nervous, and all the way up to, an abnormal heart rate, your heart seizing up. It's a muscle like anything else. If it locks up just like a Charlie horse in your heart, that could be devastating.
Wow.
And even down to calcification of your organs. If you've got too much calcium floating around, the body tries to hold on to it, and you end up calcifying an organ. That could drive up your blood pressure if your arteries are calcified.
Well, that's a great point. We're always hearing about, calcified arteries and things like that. And I think that a lot of folks are just not aware of the relationship with magnesium.
Yes.
And, one quick point I think it's important for people to understand. Magnesium's not some little tiny element in the body like zinc or selenium where you need just very, very tiny amounts for things to function right. Isn't magnesium one of the most prevalent minerals in the body after calcium?
Yeah, it really is. And the issue, too, is that the body will hold on to calcium, but like vitamin C, magnesium's water-soluble, and whatever you're ingesting in a day, the body flushes out whatever it considers is excess by the end of the day. So you really do need to either add it to your diet, get a diet rich in magnesium, or you do need to supplement it daily.
That makes perfect sense. Well, and that leads me to, the next question is, let's talk a little bit about Natural Calm. There's a million magnesiums out there. When I look on the shelves in grocery stores or drugstores, I tend to see a lot of products that are magnesium oxide.
Uh-huh.
And, from what I understand about magnesium oxide, it tends to be more poorly absorbed, et cetera, whereas Natural Calm is magnesium citrate. But even more important than that, it's in a powder form that's makes an ionic solution when you mix it with hot water. Can you comment on some of that?
Yeah, in looking at the evolution of supplements, we've gone from kind of a stone age, which, some people might be offended, but in tablets, where you have a lot of binders and fillers and you're expecting the digestive tract to break it down. And then you have capsules, which, okay, fine, at least in the stomach acid, that started breaking down, but still the nutrients were hitting the digestive tract to be absorbed. And now we've kind of come back to the start where we're trying to find organic, if you can, and very natural sources for your minerals and your vitamins, and making them in liquid form, so that as soon as you're drinking it, you have the benefit of it absorbing into your body and becoming useful. And then again, Dr. Carolyn Dean, she's gone through all sorts of different forms of magnesium, between magnesium chloride, magnesium oxide, magnesium gluconate. She's got everything, magnesium taurate. And she says she recommends magnesium citrate the most. One, it's very absorbable by the body. Two, you'll get a lot of feedback as far as how much you should be taking based on your own bowel movement. And three, as far as the price point goes, it is I would say, the most easily affordable for everybody. It doesn't put it out of the range of anybody's budget to be able to take citrate.
Sure, that's a really good point, because I have noticed that some of the other, what we would call fancy forms besides magnesium citrate do tend to cost more. And it's really like magnesium citrate is a perfect form of magnesium, is sort of a jack of all trades, if you can say.
It really is, yeah.
Well, that makes perfect sense. And, I found that the products taste good. You make different flavors. You mix it warm, but you can drink it hot or cold. So it's really versatile.
And really, when we source these ingredients, we went the full route of making sure that not only the flavorings and the sweeteners were certified organic, because you can get organic compliant, but that's not the same as being certified organic.
Sure.
And then looking at the sources of the magnesium coming from the ocean as opposed to a rock quarry where you're going to be destroying and harming more of the earth. It's more of a sustainable harvest, if you would. And then even our citric acid is special in that most citric acid comes from corn, which people can have allergies to, and our citric acid comes from sugar beets. And even with the conflict on corn potentially containing genetically modified organisms and being genetically modified itself, within sugar beets and getting it out of Europe, we have a pretty much guarantee that it is not GMO.
What a great point. And that's really important to let people be familiar with the idea that it's, a superior form of magnesium, but then you're also really going to great effort to put quality other ingredients in it, certified organic, no GMOs, using citric acid that's sourced from European beets rather than a corn. I think it's so important. And, in the last, we've got a minute and a half to go, and I just wanted to mention, I can't let the program go without commenting on a great new product you guys have had out for the last year or two called Kids Calm Liquid Multivitamin for Kids, where you combine the benefits of the Natural Calm Magnesium with omega-3 fatty acids in a liquid multivitamin for children.
Wow.
Yeah. That product, when we first came out with that, it was incredible. And again, I came from a teacher background.
Sure.
I could have had this 15, 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. I would have been the most ecstatic teacher on the planet.
I bet.
Really looking at it with what omegas do for children, and then also looking at DMAE, which is also good for improved mental focus. It has a good range of the multivitamins in there. It also has 24 organic fruits and vegetables. I would be hard-pressed to get a 4-year-old to try and take collard greens and spinach and kale as well as sardines and anchovies. But in this particular product, everything is so blended in there and the flavor is so palatable that you're getting such a bang-for-your-buck nutrition into any of your age groups, whether they're 4, 5, 13, 19, even as an adult, I take this multi.
And what is that product called again?
This is the Kids Natural Calm Multi.
Natural Calm Multi. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Really cool product.
And available at O'Fallon Nutrition. And we're just about out of time here, David.
Oh, yeah. Well, Holly, I just want to thank you so much. You've done a great job, educating us on the importance of magnesium, or the miracle of magnesium, as some books are titled. I'm glad you mentioned Dr. Carolyn Dean, because she's the author of, I believe, that book, The Miracle of Magnesium. Am I correct?
Yep.
Perfect. So anybody that wants to learn more, check that out. And, of course, they can go to your website, which I believe is just www.naturalvitality.com.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. And, of course, our website is www.o'fallonnutrition.com. You can send us emails to the radio show at whataboutnutrition@gmail.com. And with that, Steve, I'll let you wrap it up. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you very much, Holly, and thank you very much, David Gall, owner of O'Fallon Nutrition. And again, www.o'fallonnutrition.com. These shows are archived. We'll see you next week. We're out of time, but we'll see you next week, same time, same station, for What About Nutrition?